Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Naked with Dr. Money. I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, known as Dr. Money, and each week I have been sharing with you my experiences in both holding a conversation, but also the focus in how I, as a CEO of an early stage multinational organization, in the wellness space, how I am both developing, launching, addressing the typical things that every entrepreneur does, capital, capacity, and customers with that business, while maintaining my own mind, body, and soul. And doing it real time because, as some of my friends seem to think, sometimes that it's not feasible to do all of these things. And I thought that it would be beneficial to pull back the onion a little bit, if you will, and share the journey. And Naked with Dr. Money is about really that journey. How do I maintain my mind, body, and soul? But also being transparent, because it doesn't mean that every day is a beautiful, wonderful day, although I get up hoping that it will be, right? Setting the intention for that outcome. And as I've become aware of and definitely very deliberate in maintaining the space for myself to set my intention before I let my feet, jump out of bed in the morning. I don't want to do that without setting my intention for the day, because I noticed that setting that intention really does allow certain things to manifest the way that you would hope, and oftentimes even better. That already has happened in most multiple instances this morning. For example, as I went on a morning walk, walking with another CEO, discussing some business ideals and concepts and possibilities about pivoting his organization, breakthrough conversation that literally changed, what may have been a initial focus. And then again, early stage companies were always validating the business hypothesis that we've put forth to ensure that it's appropriate. And sometimes you'll find, again, as you begin to engage with those customers, which I always say, there are people that may care about your particular business solution, but who will really pay for your business solution? And oftentimes, those might not be the same folks. So you want to make sure that you're engaging in conversations very early in the business development process with those who would actually pay for what it is you're bringing to the marketplace, so that they can help guide you on what they're willing to pay for, as well as what circumstances they find themselves in, uh, where your particular product or service would be most meaningful and impactful. So going from that conversation on a walk to then having another conversation with another colleague about another situation, finding a piece of a puzzle to an effort that I was working on just in another conversation. And so I can only say that that's about being deliberate in not only setting the intentions, but in taking actions to have those intentions manifest. So when we have this Naked with Dr. Money conversation, the conversation is about uh, mindset, motivations, and manifestations. And I often ask my guests, hey, do you believe that mindset is a result of either your nature or how it is you have been nurtured? Right. So we'll have that conversation today as well, because today I will have a guest as well. But before I have my guests, I wanted to spend a little time with you because, again, in the interest of being naked and transparent, in my family, we have been experiencing a little bit of personal loss. There was a death. Um, my cousin's wife, my cousin's their mom. Unfortunately, she passed last year. And this month, last week, was her birthday, and so that brought up a lot of, memories and sadness. This is the first birthday, following her passing, and I remember when my mother passed, um, it was such a difficult journey because it was sudden. I had, no plans. It wasn't like she was ill. It was just, she went to sleep, took a nap, and had a brain aneurysm. And so, she was only 48 at the time, so that just seemed like a premature, sudden thing that was, difficult to overcome. And really, for me, what began to allow me to heal was when I learned on what would have been her 49th birthday that I was expecting my son. um, that allowed me to change a mindset. And really, in changing that mindset, that gift was given to me by a friend who had taken me to lunch and really reminded me about the things that I loved and that I could be grateful for. And one of those things was that I love teaching. I love teaching and helping and building people and organizations. And so he reminded me that by the baby being in the womb, that would be the ultimate pupil, that I would get to shape and frame his possibility. And so that gift for me at a time that could have been filled with a lot of grief, because it was. My mom was the only one who believed in my so-called weirdness, because I told her, she caught me making fake credit cards when I was 9. And when I told her I was going to be an international business tycoon, that was a little bit of an unexpected response, I think, for her 9-year-old. And then she watched me progress, rapidly, to a degree that by the time I was 18, I was in my first business, having won a contract with the California State Library Association. And then I went on to launch and build a marketing communications company, launch record labels, rebrand and reposition radio stations, and then go on and launch a multicultural marketing and advertising communications agency that, as a result of a JV that I structured, became a $250 million back company where we had over 8 offices and over 400 employees. And at that time, I was yet the youngest person on my staff. So, by the time I was 30 and lost my mom, that was like I guess people say their midlife crises. I had my midlife crises. I had it all at the same time. So it took a lot, to want to rebuild and heal and bounce back from that, particular outcome. And so along that journey, what I realized is that I invested in particular tools. And by investing in those tools allowed me to find my way out of the valleys. Because, yes, there were plenty of valleys. And I'm sure there'll be additional valleys as I continue because, we have peaks and valleys, they're seasons. And sometimes things are growing, uh, sometimes things are being pruned away from your life, from your experience. And this happens for different reasons. Some of it has something to do with you, some of it has nothing to do with you. Sometimes it's because you are making an impact on humanity in a way that you didn't realize was part of your assignment. So it's important for us to realize that sometimes when we're going through experiences that don't necessarily feel wonderful at the time, that there is a purpose, there's a reason behind those experiences. And so it's about how you respond, to the experiences, and that is based upon your mindset, because the path that you choose, the motivation that you assume is going to be informed on how you interpret the information or the experience that you're having. But and I was thinking about the experience of loss, and then also recognizing that we're near the end of April. So sometimes I find myself a bit melancholy in May. I told people that May, uh, since my mom's passing, had always become a challenging month because we had not only Mother's Day, we have her birthday, and then we have Memorial Day. And so I just felt like, could I just go from April to June so that I don't have to experience the sadness? But for those who may have new wounds, I want to encourage you because guess what? Over time, they say time heals all. But in my gratitude manual for today, there was a passage that I hope might be a little bit of a ease. So let me share that with you. And that is, I still miss those I loved who are no longer with me, but I find I am grateful for having loved them. The gratitude has finally conquered the loss. And that quote is from Rita Mae Brown. And so that's from my gratitude journal. I write in my gratitude journal every day as I am taking notes through. I told you guys I'm doing a Course in Miracles again. I did it last year after multiple attempts, and my life was shifted tremendously as a result of it. Uh, Today, I have a guest, Leema Pasha. We're going to have a conversation. She's an author. She's written a book entitled Activate Your Wellness: How Women Leaders Go from Drained to Reclaimed. So I'm sure it's going to be one that you want to check out. One of the quotes that I love is she says, "What if there was a way to integrate wellness seamlessly into the fabric of your lifestyle so you go from drained to reclaimed without extra work?" So, with that, I am going to bring Miss Lima into the conversation. Hey, lady, how are you today?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today, Dr.
Oh, I'm so
Ardrey.
excited to have you. Yes.
Yes,
Yes, from day one, once we connected, it was like, yes, we're going to do things together. And so
exactly.
I'm so proud to be having this conversation with you. So proud. Congratulations on the publishing of your book.
Yes.
You've been active out there sharing um, all of those wonderful things, building your business, building your team of folks that want to, receive your guidance. How are things going?
Things are going well. It is just very inspirational to start to talk to people and see all the shared needs that people have. Everyone's going through a similar experience with back to back meetings, no break in between, with the need for more workforce wellness and employee engagement. So I'm seeing some common themes around what people need in order to stop stress within their organization, and now it's time for them to take the next step and know that they can overcome all these changes that have been rapidly happening in the workforce. Now it's our chance to kind of, not put the brakes on, but learn to develop a strategy and a system where we can be more effective. It's not just something happening to us, like this was all thrust upon us. We weren't expecting the pandemic and everything, but now that things are starting to settle, how do we adjust and adapt in a way where we're better than before?
Absolutely, and it's so interesting because I've shared with people that along my kind of educational journey after being an early entrepreneur in a larger organization, that when I went back to school, I found it important to really develop some additional tools around leadership, and so
Mhm.
I dealt with leadership and really organizational management around change management, because it doesn't
Mhm.
matter who you are and what it is that you're creating. Your vision is implemented by individuals. And these individuals right now are mostly human. I'm not going to say exclusively, because with AI and robots in the future, they're also planning to be part of the overall contributors to outcomes. But still, at the moment, we're mostly building organizations that require input of individuals. And individuals, they show up at your organization or they log on to your platform, but they also still have families. They still have lives that are, filled with all of the things that living life brings to bear. And if there's no way to sort of recognize, it's like, oh, leave that outside the door. Well, what happens if the door has been blended? Now, what do we say when it is that you brought your business into my household because you've shut down my ability to come, my kids to go anywhere? So now I'm trying to do my work. I've got kids crawling around my feet, it's,
Mhm.
and that's trauma. And so what I've been sensing is that if I take a pulse, we would say there are signs that all of us, this trauma, we're suffering levels, varying degrees
Mhm.
of post traumatic stress disorder. And so, first, if we don't acknowledge that there's something that's happening, how
Right.
then will we know where to look for the tools? Right? Because it doesn't show up
Exactly.
in necessarily a nice, clean message. Oh, I'm struggling from. Oh, no, it shows
Right.
up in a bunch of different symptoms, microaggressions, all of these
Mhm.
different things, irritability,
Right.
depression, overeating. It's any of
Yeah.
these things where you find yourself out of balance.
Right.
The symptoms of a
Yes.
problem, but
Yeah.
oftentimes it's diagnosed or it's misunderstood. And so I wonder if
Exactly.
that's what you're seeing as well in your
Yes.
conversations and in your encounters.
Yes. Yes, in my conversations, I am seeing a lot of that, and I'm seeing a lot of people defining it as anxiety.
Mm,
So even though there might not be a constant threat that's still happening, people are still feeling that sense of anxiety,
mhm,
um, as if we're living in a they call volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous. So that's one of the things that mindfulness hopes to curb when you start developing gratitude and meditation, a practice of that
mhm.
that can help you to get past some of the anxiety and to not judge yourself, to know that you're enough.
Yes, yes, and so it's so interesting. So when I think about that, and it's a perfect segue into our conversation because I said, it's mindset that builds on then motivation and manifestations. And so let me ask you, in some of these conversations, would you say that, in your opinion, you've seen mindset? Is it more about the nature, or is it about nurture, or is it a hybrid of the two? What are you seeing?
Well, that's a wonderful question. In my observation, as I believe as young children, we come already with mindfulness skills, but we kind of get away from that. We develop more of a rote way of performing. We don't like listen to our bodies and check in with ourselves when it's time to rest or time to do something. We're always on the go. So that's why I've had to kind of help my clients implement something where they put time for themselves on their calendar, even if it's 10 minutes in between Zoom meetings, to do some breathing practices where you scan your body. So my answer to that would be it's innate in our nature to be mindful, but we've gotten away from it because we're focused on the material things, focused on competition, focused on getting the job done. And we don't realize if we are more relaxed and more self aware, we can be more productive in the end. So,
It's so interesting because I was on a morning walk with a colleague, and I was sharing how we're always talking about at times our time, the time challenges, their demands on our time. And I was sharing how I really have opted to give myself my mornings. Um,
mhm.
and it doesn't matter. I said, it doesn't matter what time I'm up. I'm up at the time that I'm up. But even when I'm up, the first couple of hours is about me doing what I want to do in terms of my routine. And I'm guided. Some mornings that I have a strong urge that I want to check in the news to see what's happening, because I don't sit in front of the TV often, checking in that way. But sometimes I'll have a desire to kind of see what's really happening so that I am aware. But then most of it is setting my intention. I'm like, before I get out of bed, I'm laying there, I'm doing breathing, I'm doing a meditation, I'm setting the intention for
Right.
my morning. I'm deciding, am I going to walk? Am I going to go to the gym? What am I going to do first? I've been doing a camera treatment, which is part of the protocols that we follow. I was having some stress that decided to land itself where my stress usually does, my shoulders, and so it's been causing me, some pain in the body. So I've been very aware of that and taking deliberate action to work on that so that I can move it out of my body so that it doesn't have an opportunity to manifest as something else. And see, a lot of times those are kind of the yield signs that we speed right on through, right? We go,
Right.
I know my body said something, but I was too busy to stop to try to pay attention when it was just a yield sign. Now it has become a full on fork in the road or a stop sign because whatever I failed to notice has now blossomed into something else.
Very true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
That
I'm wondering also if you're seeing any of those signs in
yes.
not only the environments that you're addressing.
Exactly. And that's critical. That's one of the things that I saw when I was in the workforce, that people um, ignored things like going for their annual checkups and things like that because they felt, oh, I'm too busy, I can't do it. When, if you think about the long term, you only get this body one time to take care of. So if you skip the things that you need to do to take care of yourself, and it turns into a full blown illness that I've seen a lot of women experience as they get into middle age, from breast cancer to diabetes, other things like that. If you thought about it, like, make sure you check your vitals, you have enough vitamin D, you're getting your sunlight, you're grounding. This could mean the difference between, a long term medical prognosis and a healthy lifestyle. Just think about it. Think about how much you're saving yourself in time and money over the long run versus just figuring out how you're going to, go to one doctor's appointment. So build
No,
health into your lifestyle.
it's so true because I say this, and even the statistics, when I first started talking again about why it became so apparent that the timing and going forward with my wellness organization was, back in 2020, a lot of it had to do with the data that I had begun to receive at after completing my doctorate in business, because I was looking, because originally I was thinking about doing a doctoral dissertation around venture capital for women in business, but I ultimately did it for independent filmmakers, because you need a population that you want to study. And at the time, the population of women entrepreneurs were not quite doing launching the types of organizations that I was really interested in studying. But subsequent to my completion, they started to launch those types of companies. So I began to get excited. So I'm watching the data. But what ended up happening was, as more and more women have begun to excel as not only executives, but as entrepreneurs, the sad statistic that's on parallel is now they are part of the top cohort of diabetes, stroke, and heart attack patients,
Right.
right? So now they're taking on the same stressors and the same ailments that males have experienced by assuming these same roles, which says that we can assume leadership roles, but we're going to have to experience a paradigm shift.
Yes.
We must recognize that we're building these systems. And if we don't build into these organizations and systems a wellness philosophy or culture, then it's only going to be as long as, because guess what? if you fall out dead tomorrow, they're going to advertise that position and someone else will be in line to fill it. So it's not worth compromising your health. Or the other side that I see, of course, having dealt with finance and real estate and insurance, is I see the families at the end where, again, they didn't address. And so they're on the verge of bankruptcy because of a major illness for a major contributor to the family's wealth and stability, and seeing families compromised because of that. So at the end of the day, and we've also seen very wealthy individuals, no matter their wealth, not be able to restore their health once it was severely compromised.
Right.
So when we think about it, it's like you're killing yourself to so-called generate this wealth that then may not even allow you an opportunity to restore your health if you don't take time to do so along the way.
Yes.
Yes, yes. And I think it is about that mindset. It's about creating those conversations. Absolutely.
Yes, yes. You said something critical, building a wellness philosophy. And that's critical. That's what I talk about in the organizations. I say, it's a good idea to build this into your brand so that you are recognized as an institution that values your team's health and wellness.
And what are you finding? Are you finding that organizations are beginning to agree? I'm seeing at a certain level, not only the agreement and support, it was one of the markers about 6 months ago. I happened to be in the US and catch the news. And I remember seeing a clip where several CEOs, organizations were beginning to shut down the entire company for a week because they recognized that even though they had been encouraging employees to take vacations, people weren't, or they'd be constantly connected to their social media devices. So they weren't really disconnecting. And so
Mhm.
the only way to make people release that anxiety or that fear of being too far behind, that we're all shut down. So now that you shouldn't be, you have
I
no
have
reason to be
seen
on
that.
your device because none
Yeah,
of us are on the device. But that's
yeah.
modeling, because to me, that's an example
Right,
of leadership, right? If
right,
you can't just set an initiative if you're not willing to walk that talk, right? Because people are recognizing the disparities in these initiatives where, we're just giving basically lip service to something that we really don't intend. But we've
right.
been able to correlate these better intentions to financial outcomes, reduction in absenteeism,
Mhm.
increase in productivity, reduction in medical care expenses and
Right,
insurance for those employees. So when we start impacting real bottom line issues, now, there's a reality that not only is this a good sound bite, this is a good sound principle to bake
right.
into our organization's culture.
Exactly. Yes. And it's still time for organizations to be on the leading edge of making this wellness something that's actually utilized. Sometimes people, like you said, they implement things, but they're not physically doing what they're implementing the policies, taking advantage of all the opportunities available to them. But now it's becoming more and more common practice. So I'd like to see it grow because I do see that executives are understanding the anxiety and the overwhelm that so many of them are feeling. And they're like, there has to be another way for work life balance.
Yeah. So you mentioned that sometimes you take people through a meditation or some exercises to regain. Tell us a little bit more about some of these exercises that you're finding that are helpful
Mhm.
just in the right now that someone can
Yes.
begin to utilize.
Well, I find it's very impactful to do a combination of things. So, with mindfulness and leadership development, with the combination of those two, has been very effective because that allows people to see how it can impact their performance and impact the way they feel really quickly. So I'll go in and I'll implement some music and dance and just quick exercises that they can do, get up from their desks for 5 minutes at a time and remember to check in with themselves. And we do a body scan where you're examining how your body feels from head to toe, and if there's any pain, you can, allow it to release itself and tell yourself, non-judgment. um, and breathing meditation, mindfulness meditation. I take them through those steps. We do some goal setting, visualization. So, a number of different practices to kind of embed the change within the organization and challenges as well. So, challenging the staff and the executives to keep it up. You know, we're doing this demonstration once a week or once a month together, but when they go on their own, what's been most encouraging is over time seeing people build those healthy habits. That's kind of
Mhm.
what my book is about. It's a guidebook to help you build healthy habits that you can continue on for a lifetime. It won't always feel like a chore. Eventually, it will be a part of who you are. Instead of being anxious and overwhelmed, you can go back to this practice of breathing intentionally and thinking about gratitude.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, it's whenever I have, and as I was sharing during the opening, we all have peaks and valleys. So it's
Mhm.
not, even though sometimes folks say, we don't know what you're on a bubble. It's like I have those days when it's like, yeah, I'm not just, bouncing off the walls, although I prefer to bounce off the walls because that means I'm in my happy place, right? But what I said is that the importance of movement and,
Mhm.
and I realized that when I'm real deliberate, like when I was younger, people suggested that I develop a meditation practice. And I didn't know how. I tried, I kept saying I couldn't sit still, I couldn't get my mind to relax, like even more why I needed it, right? But I couldn't get
Mhm.
there. But finally, over this last couple of years, I was able to really get in that space of meditation. And once you've experienced where your brain can go and just how you feel, and then how more effective and clear you are in an instant, it's like you make the decision in a day and you can literally, in the next second, create a state change. And
Yes.
it's literally by shifting again how you're looking at or what it is you're focusing on in whatever circumstance you find yourself. And so that part is so empowering because you could be right in the midst of tragedy, and not saying that you don't give yourself the emotional space to acknowledge all of the various experiences around those emotions. Actually, you do, even more deliberately, you do, but you
Right.
also go into a meditative state and where you're setting a new intention
Yes.
that does not cause you to get stuck wherever those particular circumstances could potentially make you stuck or sticky,
Yeah. That's
attempting.
critical. That's
Yeah,
critical. You don't want things to get stuck. You want to acknowledge and release anything
acknowledge.
that's no longer serving you because there's so much that we have that no longer serves us and we cling to it. I talk about in my book drama and trauma, pain
Yeah,
and anxiety. We harbor those things as if it's the best friend, and it becomes a habit.
mhm.
So setting that intention to create new habits is going to be critical to get to the next state.
And that's the thing that people are oftentimes afraid of is change, right? Because by nature, we are creatures of habit. And so you sort of get comfortable in, well, this is the devil I know versus, the unknown. And it's like, no, 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 stop with that, right?
Mhm.
That's why mindset becomes so critical. And so I find myself encouraging. I know I was always interested in reading biographies of
Mhm.
successful people, studying the journeys of even the families that created this country because they did it based on a strategy. And their strategy was, look, we could create a bunch of wealth if we could have the labor for free. So whether I agree with that approach or not, it was a business plan, right? And it was a business plan that proved to be viable up until the point that it was no longer viable in that way. So then they changed the business plan into another way. And I won't go down that path because, oh, Lord, boy, do I have a lot to say over there. That'll be for another show and another day. But the bottom line is that, well, how that shows up for each of us right now is
Mhm.
that as we engage in whatever environments we find ourselves, then we take on the pressures of those particular environments. So if it's where it is we live, what type of
Mm.
environmental hazards or toxins surround where it is we live, when it gets down to
Right.
our physical space and environments, but more importantly, where I think people miss it, what are you using to feed your mind? Because it starts there between your mental and your gut health, right? That's why we
Yes.
focus on mind, body, and soul, because we want to detox you in every level. And so if we start off by getting that gut detoxed, then we know we can probably also impact some of what's happening in the mind, because we want to shift the mindset, but we've got to disconnect those wires, those ties to the things that you've now made a habit. So we need to
Right.
rewire your thinking. And sometimes rewiring your thinking means a drastic, reset of the system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And people have to come home to themselves. That's kind of a mindfulness meditation term. And sometimes that can be painful, to sit there and figure out what are the thoughts that I'm thinking that are not serving me. When you're meditating, you become more aware of it. It's not that you're going to suddenly not think anymore. You become aware of your thoughts, and
Mm.
then you have more ability to reframe your thoughts in a way that could serve you in the long run.
Wonderful. Well, I want you to tell all of us, well, I already know where to get the book because I already ordered my book. And I will have mine probably the next time that I come to the Bay Area so I can get mine autographed.
Yes.
I'll be bringing it up for autograph copy. But how could somebody get in contact with you if they're interested in learning more about your coaching, as
Yes.
well as purchasing your book?
So visit my work website at www.leemapasha.com. Follow me on social media at Leema Pasha. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter there. I have a YouTube podcast. Please subscribe to my podcast and definitely sign up for my coaching packages and workshops for individuals and organizations.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, as always, Leema, it's so nice to spend time in a conversation with you. It's great to see you. Again, congratulations. We're definitely speaking, the same messaging and out wanting to contribute in meaningful ways to humanity and to overall wellness. So can't wait, because we'll have some upcoming announcements to make too. So you guys stay tuned. Uh, Find, follow, and stay connected to Miss Lima. And we'll be
Yes.
telling you more about how we're aligning the synergies behind what it is we're up to in the world. So I look forward to seeing you soon, Mama. And thank you for your time today
Thank you
for
so
joining.
much.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, everyone, again, I want to thank you for tuning in for another episode of Naked with Dr. Money. I want you to think about, until we connect again, what you are grateful for. Because no matter where you may find yourself, if you're feeling a little anxious, if you're finding yourself concerned, and guess what? It's understandable, because when you think about what's being shared, the news, sometimes the news can be toxic. In most cases, it can be. And so you have to guard your ear gates, because if that's all you're listening to, then chances are you're going to find yourself out of balance. And it's that imbalance that begins to lead to the other things, such as disease in your body. It really is dis-ease that causes disease, right? It's those cells that begin to deteriorate because they are being poisoned. And that is because of the thoughts. And it is also because of what you're consuming, the nutrition. So when you're consuming food that offers you limited to no nutritional value, you don't even have the ability for your cells to be energized to fight, to overtake those toxins. And so, this is why it becomes so important and so essential to not only detox your body, your physical body, but you also need to detox your thoughts. And that way, you make a clearing so that you could recognize what your soul is supposed to be about. Because when you get in alignment with your soul, guess what? Your intentions, they won't fight to manifest. They will manifest with ease. And all of the connections, kind of that how you're supposed to do what it is you've been given as your ancestral assignments, it manifests with ease. So until next week, guys, take care of you. I'm coming to a city near you soon. Look out for the Naked with Dr. Money Self Love Tour. I can't wait to see you and love on you in person. Be good and take care of you. So I'll see you soon. Dr. Money signing off.